Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'll be reading Reddit horror stories, or more specifically, Reddit, what is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story series? So, I'll read a few stories off of this subreddit for you guys. I'm gonna probably add fireplace sounds in the background, so if you hear that in the video, that's why. So without further ado, let's get into it. So for the first story, the user's name is deleted, so I'll go ahead and just read the story out. A few years ago, I was walking through the woods off the beaten track a bit, and I smelled this really overpowering sweet smell. Being nosy, I pulled back the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen and green and black with various runny bits. The local wildlife had also been dining well for a few days. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive, and it got dark, and I was just sat there in the dark with him for a long time. It turned out that he had offed himself. For a long time afterwards, I had dreams about him, and he would talk to me, and not nice things, mainly about how angry he was that I had disturbed his resting place. Probably just my imagination, but all pretty disturbing at the same time. He still turns up in my dreams from time to time, and no doubt will be tonight after typing this. That's weird. I didn't know that they smell sweet. I always thought it was like a really bad, like rotting smell. But anyway, yeah, that's creepy. I would probably freak out if I saw a dead body just in the middle of the woods. Okay, story 2. This account is also deleted, so let's get into it. Sorry, I had to burp. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night, and the drive was about 2 hours. I didn't say the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The really creepy ones you see in a lot of movies. Anyway, I had been driving about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt I could park and safely sleep. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up, and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass behind some bushes to try and cover my car from anyone else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was woken up by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock. 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was an animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratched that couple's car and then, destroyed, you know what I mean? The guy, when he got out to investigate. I'm not doing that, I thought to myself, so I got out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road, and as I came around it, there was a car parked off the side of the road with the driver door still opened. I slowed down just to look to see if anybody was in there, and nobody was there. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting across the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, hey you, get out of your car now. I got out of there and sped off, and I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story, don't sleep on the side of a deserted road. I don't know if you guys have watched Mr. Nightmare. He's like a horror story guy that reads them out loud. This is like a story I've heard on there before. It's not the same story, but like a common theme is like people pulling on the side of the road, and something bad always happens. Either like something comes from them, something comes for them inside the woods, like right next to the road, or a weird person like stops to help them and then like does something bad. So I know for my life at least, I will never stop on the side of the road like that unless I absolutely have to. And even then, I'm not getting out of my car. So always, that's like I feel like that's common sense. If you're out in the wild, like not wild, but side of the road, late at night, somewhere you don't know, like you should probably not get out of the car at all. Okay, the next story, this person's account is RE_U_serious. A few summers ago, I went for a bike ride around midnight with a friend. We went our separate ways at the end of the evening, and I had about 2 blocks to ride back by myself. Because of construction, I had to ride on the sidewalk, but the streets were dead. But it wasn't a problem until right where I was about to turn left onto my street. There was this man walking by himself, maybe 40s, a little scruffy but not homeless. The sidewalk was narrow, and I didn't want to freak him out, so when I got about 6 feet behind him, I said, "Hey, behind you," and he turned around and gave me this super angry look. I turned down the street, and he started to follow me, literally screaming about how I was I'm not going to say that, but it was some bad words, and he was going to get me and all that. I lived right off the corner, and I didn't want him to figure that out, so I decided to do another loop around the block. But that's not the scary part. The scary part is that when I looped back around and looked down the street, I saw him standing on my front stoop staring out at the street like he knew I lived there. He saw me ride by again, but he didn't say anything. I ended up going back to the friends, but my bike got stolen from the alleyway by the house 2 days later. Edit: the guy in question was definitely not actually homeless. We have a large population of mentally ill in the area, unfortunately, downtown of a medium-sized city. So if I didn't think the sidewalk was too narrow to pass, otherwise I wouldn't have disturbed him. Half the scary part was that he looked pretty much completely normal for my area. That being said, I ended up texting my mom, and she made the decision not to notify the law enforcement until my bike was stolen. Wow, okay, so it's more just like an insane person, I guess. I live like 20 minutes away from like a city, like from a downtown city. When we go there, nothing bad really happens, but like I have seen some like crazy people on the street, like people that are on stuff or something like that. One guy was like shirtless, like frolicking. This is not an example of like a violent guy, just a normal guy. He was on something, his shirt was off, he was like frolicking and like admiring the trees. I thought it was kind of funny, but yeah. Anyway, this next one is by Saint Sparkles. I had awesome parents who let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights when I was very young because my sister was a light sleeper and I could stay up until dawn. But of course, I always ended up sleeping on the couch because Nick at night made me tired. So one night, I wake up to the prickly feeling, like an instinct, just bolted into a sitting position and stared out the front window. We lived in rural Georgia, so you can imagine the magnitude of the trees. In perfect light cast from the moon, I see a silhouette of someone in this tree. The family dog dashes to the window and is snarling into the glass. Terrified, I run into my parents' room and try to explain to my parents that there is a strange person outside. Dad grabs something defensive and darts outside with the dogs to beat the wax off the hot head. I tremble in my mom's arms until Dad comes home and says he saw no one and to go to bed. I decide to sleep in my regular bedroom. I fill in my sister as to what happened. Dad is making regular rounds in the house with a cup of coffee. We're all still, and I finally think, now I can sleep. Nope. I noticed a man outside my window. From what I can see in the moonlight, he gives me a shush signal and runs away. Just turns around and runs a straight line away. I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that one. I mean, on the bright side, the guy didn't, at least try to hurt anyone. He was kind of just weird, and then he left. But, I don't know. I think in that situation I would call the cops. Or wait, no, I would definitely call the cops like the first time, I think. But maybe that's just me. I don't know if that's like a hot take or something. Okay, this next one is by Can You Say Throwaway 19. My house is farther back in the lot than most other houses. It is a strange layout as well. The sidewalk runs the length of the living room and ends at the front porch, which lets into the living room. Large windows that do not open allow great light to get into the living room, but at the cost of no privacy. The rest of my family was on vacation, and having the house to myself, I decided I would get smashed. Well, I passed out on the couch in the living room at about 9, when I realized I was too scared to walk back to my room. The couch is right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills, and I could not figure out why. Then the banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked up at the window. Somebody was standing there pounding the glass without moving. I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning. The banging continues. Then it stopped suddenly, but I still didn't move. Suddenly, it commenced again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone is banging on the window, and another person's banging on the front door. They kept doing it, would not go away. Finally, after about 40 minutes, they quit. It was the most terrifying event I can recall at the moment. It made me a nervous wreck after that. I called a friend the next day to see if he would come over and stay for the rest of the week, and his response was, "What for?" "So that we can both be destroyed in our sleep. Thanks a lot, bro." I mean, if I was the friend, I would probably let him sleep over. Like, yeah, I would let him sleep over. Yeah, that's scary. I just thought about that happening to me as I was reading that out loud. I would be terrified for sure. I don't know what I would do. Obviously, I'm not gonna open the door. But it's moments like these where, like, you wish that you'd own something. Like a weapon, I guess, for self-defense. But, bro, these stories are actually making me scared. Like, I'm thinking that there's, like, something wrong in my house now. I'm, like, listening for noises. Is that crazy to say? I don't know. These stories make me really paranoid. I actually listen. I used to, or like I still do, listen to like horror stories when I walk outside at night, and I do not recommend it because I end up looking behind me every like 2 minutes. But anyway, next story is also by a deleted user, so I don't have their name. But I was 17 and I just got my license. Back in high school, my friends and I had made it a mission to find abandoned houses to throw parties in. We had a few good candidates, but the mother lode was this house I would pass on my home from work. It was an underdeveloped shell of a huge home with a large property in the back. I had told one of my friends about it, and one day before I went to see a movie, I took him to the house. It was about dusk in summer, so I had my headlights on. I pulled into the front of the house, and we were there for like 10 seconds tops before we pulled back to go back to the main road. A minute later, this big truck pulls up behind us with its high beams on and riding us, or like tailing us. My friend and I took note of it, but paid it no mind as we headed back to the main road. At the light, I turned right, but the truck cut through the gas station at the corner and blocked us off. Out of the truck comes this big hulk of a man, and my friend and I are really scared. He raps on the window and I roll it down. I think he meant to say taps. Now, the real freaky part is that this is a busy road, and now there was no one in sight. He asks us what we were doing at the house, and I quickly lied and said we were making a U-turn. He stares at us for a few seconds, smiles, and sends us on our way. To this day, the house remains unfinished, and I'm convinced it's a drug operation of some sort. TLDR, do not go into abandoned houses. I will say, quick thinking on his part. I would not think to say I'm taking a U-turn, but good for him. Yeah, this one doesn't seem as scary as the other ones because I thought it would be like they went inside the house and someone showed up, but I guess not. But like, still, yeah, don't go into abandoned houses. I guess I agree with that. I feel like you never know what's gonna happen inside. Like, forget about like this example. Like, there's so many stories of people going into abandoned houses and there's like weird, crazy people inside. So, yeah. This next one's by Moustache2258. When I was about 10, all of my cousins and siblings were over. About 10 of us there. The parents and grandparents were out for an adult dinner. So it was the kids sitting around watching a few movies when all of a sudden the house shook and there was a large flash coming from the backyard. It felt as if a bomb dropped. We all heard, felt, and saw it. And as a pack, we ran into the hallway. The eldest cousins in the group debated on calling the police, but opted to call the parents. After a few minutes, we gained our courage and ventured out into the living room again, this time with weapons, just in case. After an half hour with no other issues, the parents came home and thought we were insane. There was nothing wrong with the backyard, and no neighbors reported anything. It's been 10 years, and we still talk about it, trying to figure out what it was. That has been the scariest thing to happen to me by far. This is kind of crazy, I'm not gonna lie. If this is real, that's insane. My mind pivoted to like the like UFO stories. I mean, I don't think they're real. Or okay, I don't know about UFOs. Maybe they're real. I have no idea. Okay. Going off topic, I do think aliens are real because if you think about it, the universe is so big. You cannot tell me that there is no other living life form on those planets. So, I mean, the word alien means like from another place. So, I do think by definition aliens are real, but I don't think that they look how we portrayed them. Like big heads and green with like big black eyes. I don't think they look like that. I'm sure there's some species somewhere in the universe that looks like that, but like, yeah, I mean, I feel like aliens are almost 100% real by technicality, but the way they look is up to interpretation, I guess. But yeah, I would think that's like an alien, especially if I was a kid. Oh, this one's really long. Okay, I'll do this one, and then maybe end it here. A week after gaining my CPR certification, I had to try and perform CPR on a woman dying of a heroin overdose. I was at a thrift store with some friends looking for Halloween costumes, and someone came in saying that someone was passed out in the parking lot. I was in the dressing room, and it just got super quiet, so I came out and told them I was certified. And I'd go take a look, and that they needed to call 911. I go outside and don't see anyone on the ground. Someone comes out and shouts that the person is in the car that's parked far out by itself. I ran over and honestly freaked out. She was pretty much already dead, completely blue in the face, slumped against her car window. She had the red rings around her eyes, but those were blue too because she was so oxygen deprived. We opened the door, and I'll never forget that when we turned her head to see if she still had a pulse, she had tears running down her face. We pulled her out the car, put her on the ground, and took her pulse again, because the first person to do it wasn't sure. We started CPR and the ambulance arrived about a minute later. They got her strapped up and continued CPR. They had another ambulance come, and those EMTs got out, and they were literally like 6 of them surrounding her. They had another ambulance come. Oh wait, I already read that, sorry. The cop told us they'd administer some type of drug that can apparently reverse overdoses if given in time, but she was pretty much dead already. They would do the necessary stuff until they could get to the hospital and call it, according to him. I also remember when we opened the door, there were needles and empty pill bottles all over the floor. She wasn't very old. We also think she had kids. She had some toys and a car seat, plus 2 names tattooed on her. Yeah, that one's kind of crazy. That's just sad, man. I don't know. These stories aren't really scary. They just make me sad. Okay, this one looks interesting. I'll read this and then call it a day. Back in 2004, I was a young, dumb 17-year-old country girl in the city for the first time for college. One night, I decided I could totally safely walk back to my dorm at around 1:30 in the morning despite not really knowing where I was. Of course, I instantly ended up wandering around a terrible part of city. Most of the streetlights are busted out, trash everywhere, loud arguments from inside. Um, the dilapidated row houses. In short, I wouldn't even want to be here in the middle of the day. A car drives up behind me and slows down, so they're keeping pace with me for nearly an entire block. I look over and there are 5 unsavory looking men inside. By this point, I was approaching an intersection and they pull up, making a left and stop on the street directly in my path. I completely panic at this point and just stand there, right in front of them. My mind went completely blank. I've never been that scared in my life. It didn't even make sense to try to run because they would have caught me without question. I'm not really sure how long I stood there, but suddenly the porch light in the house just past the car came on. Dude casually strolls outside carrying a bag of trash and car peels away. I completely break down crying and shaking. Dude spots me and listens to my probably incoherent story, takes me inside and gives me soda. Then he and his roommate walked me back to my dorm. They were both lovely and invited me to check out their stand-up sometime, but unfortunately I was too young to get into a bar. I never saw them again, don't even remember their names, but feel pretty confident that if that guy hadn't decided to take his trash out at 1 a.m. on a Saturday, my life would have taken a really bad turn that night. Edit. I completely accept that it was totally my fault and a horribly dumb thing to do. I was extremely fortunate and am no longer that stupid. Yeah, I mean, I will say I think it's a lot unsafer for girls to walk around at night. It's unsafe for guys too, honestly, but it's more dangerous for girls, I guess. I mean, if you can, like, obviously, I would suggest never walking out past, like, 10 or 11. At that point, it becomes dangerous. I mean, especially in a city, it's still dangerous, like, elsewhere, too, like the suburbs, but it's a lot more dangerous in the city. So, yeah, I'll probably end it there since we're getting to around 25 minutes. We're at, like, the 23-minute mark-ish. But, yeah, I'm gonna end the video there. If you guys liked this video, like and subscribe and comment. Like I said at the beginning, comment what you want to see next. I'll probably do a lot more of these because I like these stories a lot and I like reading horror stories. But yeah, this is kind of just the first iteration. My next video will probably be like a guess the triggers type of video, or like a video that's less centered around talking, ideally. So I'll try to get that out to you guys when I can. But yeah, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I love you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.